What's going on, guys? So today I wanted to make a video talking about tucking. I basically want to give you guys all of my tips and tricks on how to tuck, different spots on all different ships of where to tuck, as well as spots on the sloop, the brig, the galleon, as well as some meme spots that work on all ships for the most part, as well as just kind of give you guys my overall view on things to make tucking easier. I also want to showcase these spots to let people know where these spots are so they can have better ship awareness in the future. Okay, so first let's talk about what tucking is. Now what tucking is very simple. It's just hiding on somebody's ship and waiting. It's kind of like hide and seek. Now why would you want to do this? Well, most people do it just for fun. It's just a way to get some laughs, some gifts, some goofs. Some people do it so that their friends can show up because, you know, you suck them and so they hide on their ship and then wait for their friends to come and then seek you. Or sometimes people do it so that they can wait out and wait till you get a whole bunch of loot up and then kill you before you turn it all in. So why is it called tucking and not just hiding like you would assume? Well, back in the old days, in order to pull off an actual hide, you would have to tuck your head behind an object so your name would not show up on the ship. They would use the regular sleep emote like this and just kind of hide their head in some kind of object, a barrel, the wall, whatever. Nowadays, with the hide and seek emote bundle release, players have ways to hide their names no matter if their head is out or not. And I recommend anybody that wants to tuck on another player's ship come over here in the hide and seek bundle and grab hide. You can see it's actually a free emote. You don't have to pay anything for it, although you do have to come over to this shop right here where you use the ancient coins and you can pick that emote up for yourself. That does not require you to actually tuck your head. But regardless, the name has stayed the same. Now real quick before I get into the actual tuck spots themselves, I want to talk about clothing, okay? As you can see, my character here has all black on. That is kind of what you're going for if you're going to tuck on another player's ship. You want the darkest clothing possible to make sure that at night you're practically invisible. Now you don't need this exact clothing I got, so I'm not going to go into it because there are multiple black clothings that work pretty well. You kind of just got to try it, feel it out for yourself. It's really not that important. I wouldn't worry too much about the pieces. Just get the darkest clothes that you can put on and that'll probably work. Now the other thing you might want to look into is you really need to kind of be of a smaller stature. My character's pretty medium built, so you know, I get away with some stuff, but to get the best tucking avatar possible, you want to go with the smallest build, start with the smallest body, because you might be able to get into some funny meme spots that we will talk about later. Okay, so let's talk about the tuck spots themselves now. We're going to go start with the sloop, and then the brig, and then the galleon, and then I'm going to go over some spots that work on pretty much any ship that are kind of considered meme spots because they're not necessarily that great, but they can be funny and they kind of get the job done. I'm also going to be talking about the pros and cons to each spot because each spot kind of has its ups and downs and is drawn based on what you're trying to do at that given point in time might determine what you choose. Okay, so the first spot is going to be right here by the anchor. To get into this spot, you kind of just simply back up, look right at that little peg right there, go into your hide emote, and boom, you're in this spot, okay? This spot seems very obvious, but however, most players miss this spot. This is just not some place that you're generally looking down at the ground. The first pro to this spot is visibility. So you can actually see a large amount of the ship from this spot. You can see the captain's wheel, you can see the cannons, you can even see up into the crow's nest, and most importantly, you can also kind of just get a little glimpse there at the map table, enough to at least tell where you're going. That's very valuable when you're trying to find information while you're tucking. Another pro to this spot is just simply the positioning. And what I mean by that is you're right next to the captain. He's going to be sailing the ship right there. At any point in time, you could pop up, kill him. The ship's now sailing in any random direction. You have control over it. You can anchor the ship to let your friends on. The anchor's right there. You have a lot of options from engaging enemy players from this position. Biggest con for this spot is that it's widely known. A lot of people already know about this spot. It's one of the most popular spots for tuckers to use. Anybody who's played this game for a long period of time knows that this spot, and if they're already expecting that you're going to be there, this is going to be one of the first places they're going to look. Another con for this spot is that it's on the top deck in a pretty vulnerable position, meaning that if the players that you're tucking on get into a PvP battle with another ship or with a ghost ship or a fort or anything, you could get hit by a cannon and knock you out of your tuck spot. Okay, so the next spot I'm going to talk about is one of my personal favorites, and I've used it in quite a few of my videos. It's this spot right here by the map table. Anywhere back here kind of works, but I generally go right in this corner just like that. Now for this spot, you always want to turn that light out if you can make it unnoticeable, because it's going to give you a better chance at hiding if you're using dark clothing like I am right now. Now this spot may seem like it's pretty out there, and in fact I'm not quite in it right now. I'm going to scoot over a little bit more, but it actually has its great advantage. Most people are not looking that deeply, because what they're going to come on is right like this, and all they're seeing is a little black speck in the corner of that ship. It's not going to hit their minds that that's a person unless you give them a reason to think so. Okay, now let's go over the pros of this spot. The pro is I can see pretty much everything on the ship, right? The thing that lacked from the anchor spot was you can't see the bottom. You can't see down there. Now I can't quite see the bottom, but I can at least see where people are coming and going from the bottom of the ship. I can see up top where the captain's wheel is. I can kind of see up by where the crow's nest is. I got a lot of visibility in this spot. The second pro to this spot that makes it a little bit better than the anchor spot is that it is less vulnerable. Yes, you can still get shot in this spot. I am right next to the hole. I can be shot by other ships, but it's at the very back of the ship. Most people are not going to aim for the back of the ship in any kind of battle, because they have a much higher chance of missing if they're aiming at the back rather than the front. The ship's moving, obviously. So you're actually a little less exposed in this spot. It's pretty good. It's also less popular than the anchor spot. It's a little more unorthodox, and therefore most people are not looking for it. The biggest con for the spot would be that you can simply just see the spot. I mean, if you're coming down the stairs here and you're looking down like that, I'm clearly in that person's view. If that person is looking for me, or if they just simply have their eyes open, they're going to be able to see you and they're going to attack you, okay? So it's not necessarily the best, most hidden spot, but I get away with it a lot, and I think it's probably my most used spot on the sloop. Okay, for the third spot on the sloop, you have the water barrel tuck, and it looks just like that. Now, the pro to this spot is that it is by far the most secure spot on the sloop. Players that are super experienced, have hundreds of hours in this game, will miss you in this spot, just because simply nobody is looking in this direction. You hardly ever turn your head in a situation where you will look down in this corner of the water barrel. Overall, this is the safest spot to tuck on a sloop. You don't risk any kind of being shot by another player. You don't risk being seen. You don't risk a lot of things. There is one thing that you do risk in this spot that can be seen as a con, and that is being right next to the water barrel. If that player's ship is set on fire, then they're going to come down and get water, obviously, to put out the fire. And if they are on fire themselves and they come and they use the hand crank pump on the water barrel, they will set you on fire. And then you're going to have to jump up, kill them, retuck, do a whole bunch of stuff. It's just not going to be fun. But that is really the only time where this spot is less safe than the previous two spots. The other con to this spot is simply visibility. You're not going to see anything. Okay, you can kind of see people working on the map table over there, and you can see people, obviously, anybody doing anything down here, but on a sloop, not much happens on the lower deck that often, unless somebody comes down to grab a piece of food. So your visibility is really lacking. The fire can screw you over, but by far, probably the safest spot on the sloop. Okay, so the last sloop-only spot we're going to talk about here is going to be right on the end of this canvas, and what you want to do is you just kind of want to gently tap up until you see that where I just kind of fell down right there. Then I'm going to go into my hide emote, and as you can see, this spot is pretty ridiculous. This spot is very hard to tell when somebody's here. Nobody will think to look there. At night, you're almost practically invisible. This spot does have one big drawback, and that is that, as you can see right now, the ship is rocking back and forth from these waves. When we are sailing, that gets even more intense. If you guys don't know, when the ship gets a lot of waves and gets rocking back and forth, even when you're tucking like this, your character will start to kind of rock back and forth and eventually turn. And in this spot, you run the risk of actually falling off the end of the ship. Okay, so let's talk about the brig. The brig actually has less spots that I would consider legitimate than the sloop. It only has 3. Let's talk about the first one. The first spot is going to be up here by the front mast. You're going to go to the front, back up as straight as possible until you can't back up anymore, and then get into your hide spot, okay? Now this spot doesn't seem like it would ever work, okay? But for some reason, people just don't seem to look up here. I think it has something to do with the fact that there's not a lot of extra space up in the front, so people just don't catch you in their peripherals, and they don't ever look down, so they just don't see the spot. You can't see the spot from the back of the ship, so you're in the clear. Pro to this spot is, again, visibility. You can see everything going on at the top of the ship. You can see other ships that are coming for this one. You can see what island we're at. You can see what people are carrying, maybe if they bring a keg onto board, etc., etc. So this spot is very similar to the anchor spot on the sloop. However, this spot is not quite as well known as the anchor spot on the sloop, so you're likely not going to be found by more experienced players as often as in the sloop anchor spot. However, also similar to the sloop, a good con for this spot is that you can be shot off by other ships, and you're kind of more exposed in the daytime when the players are on an island or an outpost or doing whatever, because you're just out in the light and you're out in the open. Okay, the second spot on the brig is going to be over here behind the quest table. There's a lot of ways to kind of do this. It's not really one way to do it, but basically you just want to hide back here behind the quest table, behind the window, probably a little bit closer to the wall than I was right there. This is just kind of out of the way. Even if they're looking at their quest table, they're not really going to see you back here, especially if you turn off the lanterns and it's nighttime. It's just kind of out of the way. Most people aren't going to see it. The pros to this spot is obviously it's pretty well hidden. It's not out in the open. It's in the back of the ship, so if the ship starts getting hit by cannonballs, you're unlikely to be hit by it. It does actually have quite a few cons, though. The biggest one being that this is very similar to the anchor spot on the sloop, in that it is pretty well known. And there's a lot of videos of people hiding in this spot. People check it. Okay, experienced players check it. The other big con to this spot is the visibility is not that great. A lot of people put their treasure back here by the bed, so you at least can kind of see what's going on in that department, but you can only see the bottom of the ship, and you can't see the map table, so you have no idea where you are at any given point in time. So this is probably my least favorite spot on the brig, although I do go in here pretty frequently because there's not a very large selection of spots on the brig. And the third and final, what I would consider a legitimate tucking spot on the brig, is over here by these barrels by the mat table. You just back up like this, get in like that. Now this spot is actually probably the best one on the brig. I've pretty much never been found here unless the crew already knew that I was on their ship because I had been messing with them, or they found me in another spot, whatever. Much like the previous spot, you can see everything going on down here, but unlike the previous spot, you can actually see the map table. So while you can't actually see what's going on upstairs, which is a con for this spot, you can see where you are on the map, especially if you kind of know what the different islands look like and what have you. So this spot does suffer some visibility issues, not quite as much as the one in the back. You can't see the top deck, but you are very, very hidden. Most people don't check here. It's out of the peripherals. It's just an overall good spot, and probably my favorite hiding spot on the brig. Okay, so next we're going to talk about the galleon. Okay, so the galleon has quite a few different spots on it, actually, and they're actually pretty unique. The first spot we're going to go to here is behind the captain's chair, the old infamous captain's chair. Okay, so you just go like this, and boom, you're in the spot. You can't even really see your character here because there's just not a lot of space back here. Now the pros to this spot are it is exceptionally well hidden. There's really no reason you'd ever see somebody in your peripheral vision in this spot if you were a pro or a new player. You get decent visibility from being able to see some parts of the front of the ship, at least people passing by. You can see what quest people are on. This is usually where people put the loot when they're on a galleon, so you can see what they're collecting and what they have. It also is in a spot that's relatively safe from cannonballs. You pretty much never ever would get hit over here. I don't even know if you really can, but certainly rare if possible. The biggest downside to this spot is, again, like the anchor spot on the sloop, this is the most well-known spot to hide on a galleon. So if your crew that you're hiding on expects there to be a problem, if they expect there to be a tucker, this is going to be the spot they're going to look first. Any experienced player has seen a video or has experienced somebody hiding back here because it's a pretty good spot, and this is going to be the first place that the crew looks for you if they expect a problem. So much so that if you've ever even heard the word tucking before, you've probably seen a video of somebody hiding in this spot. It's probably the most notorious of all of them, and therefore that's its biggest downfall. Quick little bonus here. I've also seen people hide back here on this little back deck of the galleon. You can actually hide back here, right by the window. It offers a similar place to the captain's chair, similar hiding, as most people really don't have a good legitimate reason to come back here. However, you are more exposed to people seeing you while they're on an island. You're also exposed that people can just walk back here, and some people just walk back here for willy-nilly, and you're not really hidden. You're just kind of expecting that nobody's going to go back there, because if they do, they're most likely going to see you. It's not really a legitimate tuck spot, but I just want to throw it in here because, you know, it's been done before, and I want to point it out just in case you guys were thinking about it. Okay, so the next tuck spot, we're going to go to the bottom deck here, the lowest possible deck. Now, the thing about the lowest possible deck is all of these barrels, for the most part, every single one of them makes a good tuck spot. You can even tuck right back here, right behind the staircase. That's not so bad, okay? Now, how many people are going to expect somebody to be there? Although I wouldn't really consider that to be phenomenal. I probably wouldn't use it. You know, you can go right here by this barrel, okay? That's pretty good, all right? You can go just about any one of these barrels. I've hid right here many times. You can hide on the very front one, just kind of like the brig, right? Kind of up here. All of these barrels, pretty much, you can tuck into any one of these, and you're going to be in a pretty legitimate spot. The reason for that is there's really no reason to come down here unless they have somebody in the brig, right? There's really nothing down here, okay, except to repair holes. And if they're coming down here to repair holes, they're going to be much more focused on the holes in the water than looking for somebody who's tucked back here. Now, obviously, again, you've probably seen a trend here. The biggest downside to this spot is the visibility. You can't really see anything down here. You can't see a map. You'll hardly ever even see players. It's just you're in it for the long haul if you're going to hide down on this deck. The other downside to hiding down here on this deck is your survivability. You're likely to take hits down here from enemy players trying to sink this ship. They're going to aim for the bottom deck first to try to get holes in it so that the galleon will sink. You probably won't get seen if you get hit by a cannonball because it's unlikely somebody will be down here while you get shot. However, you know, if you don't have food, eventually you're going to die. The other problem that this spot has with death is that if the crew is taking on water and they're just neglecting bailing and repairing, as you may or may not know, on a galleon, this deck is going to fill up first, and then the second deck is going to fill up, and then you're going to sink. You can actually stay pretty well afloat for quite a while on a galleon while your bottom deck is completely full of water, and just bail out whatever's on the second deck and then focus on whatever's going on in the battle. Therefore, if you're actually down here tucking while they're in a battle and they're not repairing holes, they're just bailing out whatever they can and focusing on other things, you're going to drown. So it's not necessarily the safest spot when it comes to combat, but it's definitely pretty safe as far as being seen. Another quick little bonus for you guys would be these little rivets in this front part of the galleon here. You can kind of hide like this. I've done this before. It hides you pretty nicely. You're camouflaged, especially at nighttime. You can't really see it from the front of the deck at all. The problem is any time anybody's going to come up on the harpoons, they're going to be likely to see you if they know what they're doing. It's not really that great of a spot. But it can be done, and I've done it before, and this is just a little quick bonus. The reason that the galleon is going to have a couple bonuses like that is because the reality is that these spots on the galleon are actually so good that if a player doesn't know what they're doing when you're talking on their ship, you're probably never going to get found. It's just that they're really nice spots, they're really well hidden, and And so you probably won't use these little bonus spots like that often. For the final and probably my favorite spot on the galleon is over here. Now this is, it seems quite funny, and it is, right under the captain's wheel. Now I'm not quite there yet. You kind of want to get more like that, I guess, where your head's kind of in the center of the wheel. For some reason, it's just very hard to see this spot. I guess the wood in the front kind of blocks it off. The person on the wheel is not going to be looking there. This doesn't seem like a good spot, but I've pretty much never legitimately been found in this spot. I've been found accidentally a couple times by, you know, enemy fire, which is the biggest downside of the spot. So the biggest con to this spot is going to be getting shot by enemy cannonballs, because if they shoot at the captain to get him off the wheel, that's probably going to hit you. If they get firebombed, that's probably going to hit you. But overall, this spot is probably the best because the pros are, you can see everything. This is one of the, probably the only spot on the galleon where you can actually see what island we're at. We can see what's going on the front. We can see the captain and what he's doing. We can even, if we try hard enough, see the direction the ship is sailing. Now you can't see the map. That's the one biggest downside. You can't quite see the map like you can on some of the sloop spots. But as far as visibility goes, this is a very nice spot, and it is just really good at concealing. For some reason, this top deck wheel spot does not get seen by many players unless they are looking for a tucker. Okay, so that is my favorite spot on the galleon. I recommend that over anything else. Okay, so lastly, I'm going to go over what I consider to be all ship or meme spots, because they work on all ships for the most part, but they're not that great and pretty funny, but just overall not that effective if you're actually trying to legitimately hide on somebody's ship. Okay, so the first one is the simple old-fashioned ladder tuck. As you can see right here, I'm just chilling on the ladder of my sloop. Now, you're actually probably going to find yourself in this spot quite often. If you're going to be sneaking on players' ships, this should be the first spot that you hide in. You should swim over to the other person's ship, wait on the ladder, wait till you hear like a calm moment, nothing's really happening, you can't tell what's happening, and then climb up and get into a legitimate spot. However, this spot is really not very good in the long term. Odds are you're going to be parked up on an island at some point on this side, and somebody on that other team is going to try to use this ladder, and you're just going to be sitting here. You can stay in this spot for long periods of time. I certainly have in the past. However, if you stay on it forever, you will end up being seen. So it's kind of legitimate in that you're going to be opening here a lot of the time, but you just don't want to stay here for that long. Okay, so the next meme spot is going to be the old-fashioned cannon tuck. Now, this spot can actually work pretty well if the players are not expecting there to be somebody tucking on their ship. It just looks just like that. The thing you do is you turn the cannon to the back of the ship. It can work on any ship, and then you just kind of go into the tuck spot just like that, where your upper body is concealed by the cannon, your lower body kind of sticks out like that. This actually works pretty well most of the time. You are very vulnerable to being shot by other ships. You're also going to be vulnerable to being exposed if the player turns the cannon a lot, and it's just also not that great of a tuck spot. But however, it is just kind of funny. You got good visibility. It does work pretty well, especially in the short term, but it's just not that great overall. So the next all ship / meme spot is going to be simply another classic, just in the crow's nest, just like that. Most people actually don't go up to their crow's nest that often, unless they're hiding barrels up here or searching for other enemy ships, in which case you probably shouldn't even be tucking on them in the first place, because they're not going to have any loot unless you're just trying to have a good time. This is actually probably the least visited spot on many ships, and so you can get away with just simply hiding up here and waiting for something to happen. The downside is you're completely exposed. There's nothing here that is preventing you from being seen other than the fact that it is rarely visited by most crews. You can see a lot while you're up here, but yeah, that's just about it. Okay, so now starting to get into the actual meme spots, and that is spots that I really would never use unless I'm just trying to have a good time. and the first one is hiding on the mast. So if you just jump out of the crow's nest, if they have multiple masts on any of the other ships, you can obviously just jump down at a level and do it any time, and you can just hide on the mast anywhere. And usually it's pretty funny if you can get away with it. I generally like to hide kind of behind the ladder like that. The biggest downside of this spot is that it's silly. It really doesn't work that well, and much like that other spot on the back of the sloop, if the waves are real heavy, you will simply just fall right out of this spot and fall into the front of the deck, be damaged, and the players are probably going to kill you. Next meme spot is actually pretty funny. Just hide in the cannon like this. Noobs won't see you. That's just it. They won't see you, but you know what's going to happen. Eventually, they're going to get into a battle, and that's going to happen. So it doesn't work that well, but it is a legitimate hiding spot until that happens. Next meme spot can only really be done effectively on a sloop or a brig. It doesn't work that well on a galleon because there is a legitimate spot right next to it, but simply walk up to the captain's wheel as like you're going to sail it, and then if you have the deck hide emote, that works the best for this. I guess you could use hide if you really wanted to. It definitely wouldn't work as well, but if you have deck hide, you can just plop down like that. Now this is very obvious. It doesn't really ever work, but I have gotten it to work a few times, and when it works, it's funny. It's definitely not meant for any kind of long-term kind of survival or any kind of long-term hiding, but you can hide here for a little while if the players are not used to people hiding on their ship. Okay, and so lastly on the meme spots, we have hiding in a chest, barrel, crate, whatever you can kind of pick up and move around. It's definitely funny. I've actually pulled it off quite a few times where I can actually hide in this spot and people never find me. As you can see right now, I'm hid in a ammo crate. My feet and my head and my hands and my shoulder are all sticking out, but for some reason people just don't really look here. They kind of leave their loot, drop it, don't look at it again. I probably wouldn't recommend hiding in an ammo crate like I am right now, because people will come over obviously to get more ammo, and they're just like, wait, why is there a shoulder sticking out here? But it does work. I've hid in some storage crates, believe it or not. I think that's probably about it on the meme spots that really can actually hold up somewhat get away with hiding on people's ships. Experienced players probably aren't going to fall for any of those last ones I just mentioned, but I've gotten away with it on some new players before, and it's just fun. You can kind of come up with any of your own meme spots that you just want to hide. Like, I don't know, maybe you can kind of just want to hide up here on the bow, and maybe it's nighttime and they just don't see that. Or maybe you have the DLC and you want to do a funny little pillar hide right here. There's a lot of spots you can come up with that are kind of funny and fun to get away with, but overall I consider that just about the really only good meme spots that actually work decently well. And that's about it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it taught you a thing or two about tucking. Maybe you learned a couple new spots you're going to try out. If you don't like to PvP, if you don't like to tuck, if you don't want to mess with other players, hopefully this teaches you something about ship awareness and maybe places to keep an eye out. Look for players when you have some valuable loot. One thing I do want to say to people that may be more paranoid from this video, I just want to point out that don't let the fear of tucking ruin your gameplay. There's not that many tuckers out there. Not many people actually take the time to do this. Most of the time when players are tucking, they're doing it for one of two reasons. A, they're just screwing around and they're probably not even really interested in their loot. Or second, because you just killed them and one of them happened to be either still alive or just spawned in the water and they want to hide on your ship so that they can have their friends come up and sink you in the process. But most players will not hide on your ship for 2 hours waiting for you to collect a bunch of loot and then steal it from you. It's just not that entertaining. So don't be too paranoid about it. I just hope that you guys have the awareness of these spots. So if you see something weird going on in your ship, if you notice something's not right, or maybe you just collected a huge stockpile of loot and you want to be absolutely certain that nobody's hiding up on your ship, or maybe you just sank somebody and you want to make sure that you check the spots before you set off and go turn it in. I just want to make sure you guys know where these spots are and also help people maybe pull off some good spots of their own. So this video is a little bit different than the rest of my content on this channel. A little less gameplay oriented, a little more guidey oriented. I really enjoyed making it. Let me know in the comments. Do you want to see more videos like this? Do you like the guides? Would you rather just have me play gameplay? Would you rather just have me do a bunch of montages and put music over it, you know? Let me know down in those comments down below. And happy thieving. Thanks.